Now, let's take a look at some of the controls that we have of type once we've created it. I've copied and pasted some text here into a text box, actually a section from Homer's Odyssey. Now, I want to make some changes to this text. So when I'm in here working with the text itself, you'll see that up here in the control panel, I have my fonts. I have my font style, things like bold or italics. I have my font size. And I have my paragraph orientation, left, centered, or right. If I want more control than that, I need to bring out certain panels. So first, I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to come down to Type, and I'm going to bring out the Character panel. And you'll see that that actually brings out not just the Character panel, but the Character panel and the Paragraph panel and the Open Type panel. We're just going to worry about the Character and the Paragraph panel. In here, you can adjust things like the leading, which is right over here to the right of the font size, and it's got right now set to 14.4 points. The leading, of course, is the space between the lines of text, and that can be adjusted right there. I can adjust the tracking. The tracking is the uniformed space in between all the characters. That's right over here, just below the leading. If I increase that, you'll see that all those letters and characters are getting further apart from each other, and I can go the other direction to make them closer together. And I can adjust the kerning. Now, the kerning is generally not anything we need to worry about when we're dealing with small text like this, but if we were dealing with large text, the kerning allows us to adjust the individual spacing between characters of text. So that's right here below the font size, and if I bring that down, you'll see it moves that E closer to that K, and if I were to go up, it would spread that E further apart from that K. So that's my Character panel. In my Paragraph panel, I've got my alignment again, but I've added in full justifications if I want. So rather than doing just left or centered or right, I can also justify with the last line to the left, justify with the last line centered, or justify with the last line to the right, or justify all my lines, which spreads them all out. I've got a left indent, I've got a first line indent, a right indent, space before paragraphs and space after paragraphs. One last thing is this hyphenate checkbox. If that is checked, it will allow it to put hyphens, if necessary, in the words. If I uncheck that, it will not allow it to hyphenate and will make sure everything stays on its own line. Now, another great group of panels we have for working with text in Illustrator are the Styles panels. If I come up here to Window and go to Type and then say I want the Character Styles, that will bring out both my Character Styles and my Paragraph Styles panels. In here, I can save new styles based upon the settings. So what I would do is I would, set this up. Whoops. Let's say that I wanted this to be a different font. Let's go Optima, and I want it to be 13 size. Then I could save this as a new style, name it whatever I wanted, and then by the single click, I could apply that same formatting to something else. Now, the difference between Character Styles and Paragraph Styles, the Paragraph Styles save the paragraph formatting as well. So the first line indent, space between paragraphs, things like that get saved with Paragraph Styles. And in Paragraph Styles, also the Character Styles get saved too. So it's kind of the save all. It'll have everything having to do with the characters and the paragraph. Where the Character Styles will ignore things like the paragraph formatting and just remember things like the color of the text, the font that was used, the font size, things of that nature. So those are the Styles panel. And lastly, another panel that can be very useful is the Glyphs panel. What we're looking at here is nowhere near the characters available within a specific font. Your keyboard just has a very few of them. So if you come up to Window and to Type and say you want to see the glyphs, this gives you a panel that shows you all of the characters available within your font, and you can see that there's a lot more than just the letters and the numbers. And I can change my font down there to see characters available in other fonts, and to insert one I would just put the cursor where I wanted and then come over and double click and it would place that in my text there. So those are some of the typographical panels that we have available when working in Illustrator. The last thing that I want to talk about with working with type in Illustrator is creating outlines, what I started with in the first place. When we type, we are creating very, very special and particular type of object, and that is text. I'm going to go here and just type my name, and let's go ahead and make that bigger. Let's go even bigger than that. Not quite that big. Meant to do 100. There we go. Now, well, not even that's not going to fit. Okay. Now, when I'm working with a font or with type, there are very specific advantages. I have all these things that I can do with type that I can't do with other things. Like, for example, with just one button, adjust the leading, the kerning, the tracking, like we just looked at, adjust the alignment, come in and decide I want this to be a Q instead of an R right there. Click it and select it and change it to a different font. Those are all things that I can do with type that I can't do with just other objects. But there are certain things that I can do with other objects that I can't do with type. For example, I can't apply a gradient to type. Or let's just say that I wanted to make this L taller than the other ones. Can't really do that with type without stretching it, which I don't want to do. So if I select my type and I say type, create outlines, what that does is actually turn my type into standard vector objects. So you can see I now have points and lines. It is no longer type. It is now vector shapes. It looks just like the type did, but it does not retain the properties of type. I can't go in and change the font now. I can't go in and just adjust the kerning with my panel here. I'd have to do everything manually. But it gives me the ability to do the things that I can do with any other shape, like give a gradient to it or manipulate it. Now, before I work with it, I need to go ahead and I need to ungroup it. This has been grouped, which means it stays all together. And we're going to talk about grouping we can just talk about grouping right now. If I have multiple objects that I want grouped together, I can select those objects and then go up to Object and Group, and it will lock them together so that they resize together, they move together, they get deleted together. But if I want to then work with them individually, I just go up to Object and Ungroup. And now you can see that these will act as individual pieces. So I can just bring that up and rotate it. I could go to my Direct Select tool and grab these points at the top of that. And I'm going to hold down, accidentally deselected it there. And I'm going to hold down Shift and drag those up like so. And you see that I have the ability to alter these in ways that I could not alter them otherwise. I can work with things like the pen tool, for example. I could zoom in here on this J, and I could go to my Create Anchor Points tool, my Convert Anchor Points tool, and I could drag that out like that. Now I don't want this one out, so I'm going to pull it right back in. And I'm going to drag this one out like so. Do the same thing there, pull that back in, and now I've given that a curved top, something that did not exist in the font before. So this is the advantage of creating outlines. It allows you to do some fantastic things, fantastic effects with your font that you can't do with type otherwise.